So, thank you all for being here today for our excellent Educational Excellence Week presentation. We want to thank CE for putting on this event. So, we couldn't do it without you, obviously. So, you know, also want to thank folks in the College of Education. Dr. Taylor Cook and I are also part of that College of Education AI community of practice. So I want to thank Dr. Hellowell and for putting that on, and Dr. Leach for supporting it. Uh, so our presentation today is on artificial intelligence in higher education, effective implementation, prompting strategies, and policy development. Let's see. All right, so tell you a little bit about us. I'm an assistant professor in educational leadership and technology. And again, I mentioned I participated in College of Education's AI community of practice. Dr. Taylor Cook, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm trying to figure out why I'm appearing on here twice. Like I'm in the corner and then also at top. I'm Dr. Taylor Cook. I'm a professional associate professor, and I didn't even realize it's at curriculum instruction. I'm actually in the division of Child and Family Studies,
Thank
and I
you.
also, oh, yeah, I didn't realize that. And I also participated in the College of Education AI Community of Practice. And I just wanted to kind of show the book. This is what we were reading, and it was a great book to reference.
All right. Thank you for that. So, just as we begin, I just kind of want to set some context. So, we all know that AI is transformative, so what is it transforming? Well, for one, it's transforming the way professors teach. So, we see that every day in terms of new tools that are coming out that we can use in our classrooms. It is transforming the way students learn. There are new technologies that they can use to help them learn the material more deeply than they might have otherwise. Obviously, there are tools that could be used in ways that we might not want, but there are tools that could be used in ways that are actually quite helpful. Um, it also is transforming the way administrators accomplish tasks and manage projects in higher ed. So, again, we have both faculty administrators as well as administrators in other parts of the university, whether that's student affairs or enrollment management or finance and administration or athletics. Uh, so it is obviously it has applications across the higher education institution. Um, AI is also transforming the college graduate or the job market for college graduates. So, and I know sometimes we're hearing about job market changing and jobs that might have gone to entry level workers, many of whom being college graduates now, those tasks being given to AI. Um, and we're hearing some of those horror stories. I don't know how pervasive it actually is, but it has been true in some cases, in particular with certain majors. Um, and so it is something that we do need to be thinking about. Um, and it's also transforming the skills that are needed in the job market. So if we think about, things that we have traditionally said are important, if we think about, National Association of Colleges or employers, or, folks that think about things like teamwork and communication, data literacy, those things are obviously still important. But AI literacy is now emerging as a top skill for several industries, and LinkedIn in their Skills in the Rise reports is noting that in multiple industries. But there are also a number of other reputable sources that are indicating the need that employees have in the job market for AI literacy. So, first part of our presentation will deal with effective implementation of AI in higher ed. So again, I'm going to be giving you a little bit of my own personal experience as well as some ideas that come from Bowen and Watson and that Teaching with AI book, particularly from chapter 12. So if you're one that likes to skip to the chase, chapter 12 gives you a lot of practical applications. So we'll be looking at things like alternative or alternate forms in media, just what are some different ways we can get students to demonstrate mastery? things that might work live and in person versus things that might work in an online format. Things that are in terms of social and peer opportunities. So, ways that they can collaborate with one another, assignments where there's some steps or processes, as well as how they can learn to work with AI instead of just saying, "Here, AI, do all the work for me." So, students, in class, whether their students may be giving presentations in terms of different assignments you may give them. So Bowen and Watson suggested that we consider allowing them to allow AI to assist students on developing an outline for that presentation, and then having the students build the presentation from there. But having them acknowledge, obviously, that they've used it and what they've used. Um, Also involved in other types of storytelling options. There's a lot of AI tools that can make comic strips or make videos, make songs. So allowing them to incorporate some of these tools, maybe they're not the entire presentation, but maybe there's a piece that they bring in that adds value. Um, as you probably know, AI can create images or suggest images. And so maybe they're building the content of their presentation, but they're supplementing with AI generated images. Um, you can also, have the students prompt AI to design slides that maybe again have an image, but maybe only have 6 words or less. And then they've got to provide the speaker notes to be able to describe the information that's on that slide. So they're not just reading off the slide, right? They've got to come up with the other information themselves. Um, Also, allowing them to practice with AI, maybe have them present on, an AI tool, have the AI tool actually evaluate and give them feedback on their presentation because there are, again, AI tools that can do that, and give them pointers so that when they do the presentation live for you as the instructor or for an audience, the classroom, or a professional audience, if you're having them present to people in the field, they're a little bit more prepared because they maybe know what kinds of questions might be asked and better able to answer the questions when folks have them after they're done with their presentation. But also, obviously, it's important to stress that ultimately that the student or the presenter is going to be responsible, for their presentation quality as well as their slide accuracy. So the information that's on it. So if they just take whatever AI gives them and put it up, and show it in class, it may not be accurate, particularly depending on how good of a prompt they use, what context provided, what resources they gave it to use to do the assignment. Because there is a bit of a garbage in, garbage out quality to AI. So again, if you're being creative about different kinds of ways that students can learn the content, the one thing you can do is think about case studies or text-based adventure games, things where they've got to go through some sort of scenario involving the content, right? Um, but you can actually use, as the instructor, you can use one of these tools to actually help you create a case study for the students to go through. Um, and then from the student standpoint, right? So as they go through the case study or go through the adventure, you can potentially allow them to use AI for things like videos, podcasts, concept maps, other images, but then, evaluate them based on, you know, the work that they did with the AI, the quality of it, because again, how well they worked with the product, will determine the quality of it. So you're not strictly grading the quality of the product in terms of is it right, which obviously you need to do that, but you're also grading their ability to work with these systems, which is what employers are asking us to have these students be able to do. Because if all they know how to do is just say, "Hey, give me something," and then it spits out AI slop. That's not necessarily what the employers are wanting. They're wanting students who know how to use these tools at a high level because now they're starting to say, "Hey, we need folks that have this skill and that skill and that skill." But if they're doing it all themselves, there's no way they're going to do it. But if they're using AI tools to do all of these different other skills, then they're able to do that, right, in these jobs. So, um, they've got to be able to use these tools effectively. Okay, in terms of co-teaching, so, I think back to my days in K-12, we used to always say, well, I didn't say always, but there was a term that we used to say it was C3 before me. And that typically dealt with students working together and trying to learn before they immediately came to me with their questions, trying to get them to see each other as colleagues. And, there are some times when they can actually get their questions answered right there among their peers. And in this environment, when we have AI, the students can essentially go to AI when they do have questions. And so when they come to us, they're asking a more informed question. They're not just coming and saying, "Hey, what's the definition of this term?" They're coming and saying, "Hey, I spent time with this tool and I'm trying to understand, how, the organelles in the cell work. But I'm having a problem after I saw this. I still don't understand this." And so they're coming to you with a more informed question. Um, we'll talk a little bit more about this tool later, but Notebook LM is a tool that can be very helpful for that in terms of giving students a variety of resources to choose from. Whether that is a concept map or a podcast or a video or a report, PowerPoint. So there's quizzes, things like that, so they can, if there's a topic that they want to learn more about, they can come more prepared to class. So if you're someone who has more of a flipped classroom type of model, you can have them go and work with Notebook LM before they come to class. So when they come to class and you do the activity, they have a better understanding of the topic so they can have more informed questions and get more out of the time that they spend with you in class. Uh, but again, assuming they're using these things before they come to see you, then once they come to class, we give them opportunities to demonstrate what they've learned. But they're going to do that themselves, right? So they can rely upon that as something to help them learn, and then you give them those opportunities to show what they've learned. So some of you in your classes, or whether it's undergraduate research or graduate research, may involve students in research projects. Um, and so before you conduct these, surveys or action research or other types of research, you could potentially have students, give a scenario to AI and ask it to predict the response, and then the students go and collect their data and then compare it to what the AI predicted, right? And so you're looking at what did the AI, what was their hypothesis, and did the results support or not support that hypothesis? And that can be helpful because again, AI does a lot of things, but AI doesn't necessarily predict the future and know exactly how your survey is going to turn out, right? So, in terms of discussion boards, a lot of us, particularly those who teach online, may use discussion boards. But a lot of times we only use text, right, in terms of our responses. But uh, you know, there's there's a case to be made for advocating for um, different types of formats for submissions, whether those are audio submissions or video submissions. Um, so in this world now, students could potentially, whether it's a text-based discussion board post or a audio or a visual discussion board post, could have AI assist them in that. Um, Now, you could have a scenario where they're acknowledging what AI has, provided for them, but then the role of the students in the class is to evaluate what the AI has provided that student. Did it was it a quality response? Was it a not quality response? And why? And so, again, some of this comes from Bowen and Watson's work, but also, like I have a, recent article that's, been published. So hopefully I'll get a chance to check that out. But again, in one of my classes, we We have weekly discussion posts where they would analyze a certain topic each week, but at the end, we'd have them actually have an AI answer the question, and then they would analyze the students or analyze the AI's response in terms of its strengths and weaknesses. But then I'd also give them some opportunity to engage with the AI about their own career goals and having the AI serve as a sort of a career coach, and then evaluating the AI's mentorships per se in terms of their own career development thing, ways that they can apply what they're learning in the program to their current jobs. But I think there's a lot of opportunity here in terms of discussion boards, particularly for those who use them in their classes in Canvas. So again, students have the opportunity. They're probably already using AI to study for exams, but depending on what tools they use or how they use them, it may or may not be an effective way of learning. And as most of you probably know, students that are engaging, interacting as they are learning, quizzing themselves, trying to use higher order thinking skills are probably going to be more prepared for those exams. And so using AI in that way can actually help them do that. And again, Notebook LM is one type of tool that can help students with that in terms of quizzing themselves, getting explanations of topics that they find difficult to understand. And so just wanted you to, consider that in terms of maybe suggesting that to your students who need help to study for exams. Obviously, they wouldn't be able to use that unless you allow them to, but that would be something they could use to prepare. Okay, so again, we think about higher order thinking skills. So not just, hey, what's the answer? What's the definition? But then how do you use this information? How do you create? How do you design? So how do you find solutions to challenges out there in the marketplace? And they can give them an opportunity if they want to work with AI to help them brainstorm different alternatives, and then have the students evaluate those alternatives, and then create some implementation plan based on which of the alternatives they chose. But not necessarily, again, not allowing AI to be the one that does all the work, but getting them to look at AI and then being the human who's evaluating the options that AI provides. So, again, for those of you all who may be in faculty administration or in academic or in other forms of administration in higher ed, some common tasks include things like building slide presentations, building different documents, sending emails, right? You may have seen that in your Outlook, that option. Building email campaigns that go out, analyzing data, evaluating different options, and researching different topics. So these are all things that folks who work on the administrative side might be able to use AI to assist them with. Okay, briefly, the next section we're going to go over is prompting strategies, because I want to make sure we leave ample time for Dr. Taylor Cook. But again, some common tasks, and this we're going to do a quick activity, but it won't take long. All right. So in terms of faculty and staff tasks, again, on the faculty side, you're probably going to be creating class presentations. You might be working on your syllabi, working on learning activities, assignments. And again, I'm clarifying learning activities in terms of things that you would do to help them learn versus the assessments or assignments, uh, providing feedback on assignments, and curating relevant course content. And I put on their bonus, make it OER. So if you're, creating course content or finding course content, obviously looking for OER whenever it's possible, but also being active in developing OER. Um, so, and the coordinating board does, have resources with the OER Texas group if you're interested in learning more about how to incorporate OER or create OER in your instruction, and even how to incorporate AI in that. So Dr. Taylor Cook and I are actually just finishing up a cohort on that topic. So, on the staff side, communicating with prospective and current students, administrators, faculty, alumni, donors, those are all things that staff might do. Analyzing enrollment data, creating presentations, creating documents, managing faculty and staff. And guess what? Everything on this list, AI could potentially provide some added value. Maybe it doesn't do the whole task, but there's some opportunities where AI could add value. So, for those of you who are wondering, how do I get started? What tools do I need to put in the tool belt? There's several options, obviously, and these are just a few to get started. Obviously, Tarleton has the AI Builder. So Paul Quinnell's a great resource. Justin Carroll, if you all want to know more about that, I know they've had some sessions during EE Week on that. If you're watching this after the fact, make sure you go and watch those videos. Um, Copilot from Microsoft integrates obviously with our Microsoft applications. Gemini is a Google product, as is Notebook LM as well. And then there's Claude, and they all have different strengths and weaknesses. But those are some tools that you could use to get started with AI. So, okay, so now hopefully I've sold you on why there's some value in AI, and then you're like, okay, so what do I do? Well, you're probably going to start with prompting. And there's a lot of different prompting frameworks out there, but they all sort of, I think, have a lot of these general components. So, like, what's the context? So, what is your role? What's the role the AI is playing? What level of course are you teaching? Is it undergrad, grad, upper level, lower level? What's the content area? What are your learning outcomes? How's it align maybe with the strategic plan? Uh, you know, what resources does AI need for background? So it's not just trying to find things out blind. Uh, so you can also save some of these settings. So most of the tools have places where you can save that context. So every time you do a prompt, it already kind of knows that. Um, the task, right? So it's the next thing. So what do you want it to make, right? To be clear about what it is you want. And then what do you want it to look like? Be very specific. What are the instructions it needs to do in order to create that output? And then and so what does it need to do to create it, and what does it need to do beforehand in order to build it, right? So those are some, if there's some steps involved beforehand, you want to clarify that. And then again, if it has to be in a certain format, whatever product requirements you have for your output, those are important to specify. So while we're not going to do this, in real, we're not going to talk about it. What I would like for you to do as you're watching this video is to go to the LLM of your choice. We just showed you some, and create your own prompt, and then go through. We showed you some of the different tasks. Pick a task and then provide your context, your tasks, your instructions, and product requirements. So if we have time at the end, maybe we'll ask someone if they've done that. But I'm gonna just give you that as a task that you can be working on during the second half of this presentation, but also listening intently as well, right? All right. Last bit, just want to give a plug on related micro-credentials. I know the A&M Systems doing the AI Learnathon at the time of this recording. Some of the related content or micro-credentials include the Google AI Essentials as well as the Google Prompting Essentials. And those can be, I think, stacked into the Google AI Professional Certificate. I would encourage you to take part and get those credentials, learn those skills, and then you can teach and model them for your students. And with that, I will hand it over to Dr. Taylor Cook.
So I just want to verify how much time do I have? Okay, well, I'll just go until you tell me to stop. Um, so I'm going to talk about policy development. I'm going to hit a little bit on, there was chapter 6, which was cheating and detection, and then chapter 7 is policies. If you could go on to the next slide, Mr. or Dr. Edwards. So one of the big things with policy development is figuring out why are we, and Dr. Edwards already kind of mentioned this, but why are we using AI? Why do we have to use AI? Okay, thank you. And AI is a tool that's widely embraced within work environments. And so we really should take that opportunity to teach students how to use AI effectively, along with having that knowledge themselves on the content that they're creating. Can you go to the next slide, please? So when at this point in our lives with AI, it sometimes is hard to distinguish where the student has actually started writing something and where AI took over. Sometimes it's obvious. I know I've seen that in classes where student work is very, very similar, the context, the some of the word choices they use, but then other times it's not. And so that's why we need to view AI as a tool that we want to teach students how to use. Can you go to the next one? So, the role of having a classroom policy for AI usage is to help guide your expectations, and so students understand what they're allowed to do. And so they're going to use it. Let's just all assume that they're going to use it. There are some students who won't, but a large majority of them will use it. Having complete bans is very difficult to enforce. And so we need to have clear expectations, but we also need to remember what the assignment goal and purpose is in mind. Can you go on and switch? So what I did is I asked my AI. I've named her Willow. I use a chat GPT and I've named it Willow just from past conversations and everything. And so what I wanted to do was have my students help me shape and create an AI policy for a graduate course. And so what I did here is I kind of gave my prompts and everything that I started to write up, and then I asked AI to help me summarize it. I've been told in the past that my directions can be fluffy. And so I've used AI to take my fluffy directions and kind of put it in a checklist format. And some students have found that helpful. Others like all the details that I include. So anyway, I used AI to help me form this discussion board that I created. Students were able to respond to the discussion board either with their name or anonymously if they didn't want their peers to know exactly what they said. But I started off, saying they're a graduate student in the field, they're going to encounter using AI. And so let's talk about how we can maybe use it in our course. And so I gave them some questions that they could answer all of them or part of them. And so it was about appropriate uses, what tools should be allowed to be used, what are appropriate uses, how is there too much, that kind of thing. Can you go to the next slide? Accountability and consequences. So if there was some type of violation from our policy that we created, what was going to be the consequences of that? And then what kind of guidelines should we consider when we're using AI? And so I also told them that this prompt was created by ChatGPT after I provided my ideas and requirements for the discussion board. And so I was being upfront and honest with them on my AI usage. Although a lot of these questions kind of came from me, and Willow just reworded them for me. Can you use change? So ultimately, what should be within a policy for your AI policy is the purpose statement. Why is it allowed? Why is it not allowed? Um, how is it allowed? What uses? So brainstorming, outline, editing, practice questions. Sometimes coming up with brainstorming can be an opportunity for them to put in different perspectives, get different perspectives back. Something maybe that they could have gotten if they were working in class with students. With my students being 100% online, I really did want them to take that idea of the brainstorming and maybe their AI giving them ideas that they hadn't thought about before. And then, of course, you also want to have defined the restricted uses. So, for instance, you can't have AI write your entire paper for you. You have to think about what you're doing. And then the disclosure of how students are going to tell me that they've used AI. Can you switch it? And so here's an example of just a policy, a very short policy that you can have. Mine's much longer, and I'm going to kind of just go through it quickly on the next couple slides. But this is just a short AI statement that you could give on your policy within your classes. And it's there to support your learning and the assignments, brainstorming, outline, revision. You're responsible for ensuring the final submission demonstrates your understanding and ability to apply the information. Any AI use must be documented. Can you go ahead and switch? So students with my students, and it's also suggested that if you're going to allow students to use AI, that they have to submit certain information so you can see their thought process. So usually that might include the initial prompt, the AI generated responses, maybe their critique of what was said, why they did the revisions, and then the final product. And Dr. Edwards kind of addressed some of these topics also. Can you go ahead and switch? And so here was my updated AI policy. It ended up, we had it on a whole page where students could always refer back to it. And so we talked about the basic expectations of using AI. None of them were ever forced to use AI if they didn't want to. And then they did have to provide their initial prompt and then the answer that was provided. Then we talked about how AI could be used. Some assignments it was fine to use to generate new ideas. Other times it was to expand on ideas. And so that's explained there. Can you go to the next slide, please? There was also how they could use AI for editing. And then finally, when AI is not allowed. All of these ideas came from student responses and kind of my feedback with agreeing with it. If you can go to the next slide. The consequences for AI use, they were much more lenient than I was. And so a little bit more of this is on me. But they felt that the first time, maybe it was an accident, maybe they forgot to do it. Okay, fine, we'll give you that one. And so the first time, if it matches, there was partial points deducted. Then there was a second time what happened. Whether or not they could resubmit work would be on a case-by-case basis. And then there might be meetings that were required. And so I did use their feedback. And I have to say that I could tell when AI was used. Students told me when they were using AI. There might have been 1 or 2 times where I thought, okay, AI is being used and they haven't said anything. I followed the guidelines that we have here. I heard back from one of the students, I'm so sorry, I forgot. And then they submitted the prompt. And then I didn't hear back from the other one, but it was a very successful class. And in my feedback, actually, they commented on how they liked being able to have this policy and having the guidance. I also created a video for them explaining how to use AI, how to go through the steps, the prompting information, some of which Dr. Edwards mentioned, but then also just our policy in general. Can you go to the next slide? So just some benefits, for students, it helps them develop AI literacy, critical evaluation of their skills. It does support diverse learners. Some students are just stronger at that brainstorming concept, or they need that feedback and everything. Sometimes they just need help rewriting everything. And it does prepare students for that real world use. For me, it really did minimize me having to guess whether AI was used because they told me and they showed me how they used it and they explained. So that also helped with the transparency. I think it did help with my interactions with them and seeing where they were thinking and where maybe some of their concepts were going wrong. And so I could help them with that. And again, like I said, I think it helps align with workforce expectations because I look at my grad students as these are my future colleagues. I might be working with them on a conference or something else. And so I want them to be able to use these tools effectively to help, children and families. Next slide. So that is what we have. I know Dr. Edwards and myself are very willing to answer any questions. There's our contact information. For myself, you are welcome if you want a copy of the stuff that I had put on the slides, the page, I could just give that to you, whatever. Any information you would like from either one of us, please feel free to reach out. And thank you for watching.
Thank y'all.